तस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकयः चक्षुर उन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. Hare Krishna to everybody. In the continuation of reading Harinama Cintamani Nama Bhajana chapter 3. So when the Lord had finished, Haridasa said, "Today I am most fortunate, for from my mouth the Supreme Lord Himself, Sri Chaitanya, will hear about the holy name." Haridasa first explained about ignorance. Knowledge means knowing Krishna is the Lord, that the living entities are his servants, and that the material world is a non conscious gross manifestation or byproduct of the Lord. The person who does not know clearly the nature of these principles and their relationship lives under the shadow of ignorance. This is one cause of Namabhasa, or covering of the sun of the pure holy name, by which its full effects cannot be felt. Actually, the mist of ignorance simply covers the individual living entity's eye in a localized position, just as the sun becomes invisible only from the relative position of the individual under the cloud, but is never really covered. So the holy name is never covered, for it is not different from Krishna and eternally transcendental and pure. The full effects are diminished for those people who have over their eyes the cloud of anarthas and the mist of ignorance. What are anarthas? These are classified as thirst for material objects, asat, trishna, miserliness of the heart, hridaya daurbalya, and offense aparadha. The category of thirst for material objects is divided thus: craving for material objects in this world, craving for heavenly sense pleasures in the next life, desire for mystic yoga powers, and the desire for liberation in Brahman. Weakness of heart may be analyzed as attachment to trifling things unrelated to Krishna, deceit, envy of someone else's progress, and longing for position and fame. Offense may be divided into offenses to the holy name, offenses to Krishna himself, seva parada, offenses to Krishna's devotees, and offenses to other living entities. By these anarthas, the influence of the holy name becomes obstructed and the full transcendental nature of the name is not manifested. The living entity will continue under the shadow of Namabhasa as long as he is ignorant of Sambandha Tattva, the basic facts concerning the Jiva, God, and the material nature and their mutual relationship. However, when the serious student takes shelter of a bona fide guru, by force of his effective spiritual practice, he can remove the obstructions blocking the sun of the holy name. When the clouds and the mist go away, the brilliant sun of the name becomes visible and bestows upon the devotee of the treasure of love of Godhead. After the bona fide guru gives Sambandha Jnana, he instructs the disciple on the practice of culturing the holy name sadhana bhakti. This is called abhedeya or process. By this specific process, the name will show its influence and drive out the anarthas. Finally, the jiva achieves the goal of life, love of God, and in that position he continues his performance of chanting the holy name in full spiritual bliss, prema. The ignorance of correct knowledge is explained as follows. The living entity takes shelter of the bona fide guru and with genuine faith receives the correct knowledge about Krishna, the spirit soul, material nature, and the relationship of the three according to the scripture. Krishna is the eternal Lord, and the living entities are his eternal servants, linked to the Lord by the bond of love, prema. This relationship of Jiva to God in prema bhakti is also eternal. This is the living entity's constitutional nature, which has only to be uncovered. However, when the Jiva forgets that he is the eternal servant of Krishna, he comes into the material world looking for happiness. But this universe of illusion is a prison house for the Jivas, acting as a remedial or reformatory process by pushing the Jivas for turning away from Krishna. The material world is meant as a place of purification. By the mercy of pure Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, if the Jiva takes a Krishna's name with correct knowledge of Sambandha, he will certainly attain the great treasure of prema, the perfectional activity of the living entity. At that time, even Liberation of merging into Lord's effulgence becomes decidable, but as long as transcendental knowledge of Sambandha is not accepted, the anarthas and ignorance must remain, and the person will continue on the platform of Nama Bhasa. Though the person chants, the effect is limited. However, even chanting in the Nama Bhasa stage is considered to be very auspicious. It is considered the chief of pious activities, for by the accumulation of Navabhasa activity, one eventually gains faith to accept devotional service properly. Namabhasa is considered higher than the activities of yoga, sacrifice, varnashrama rules, austerities, etc., because it will lead to the path of pure bhakti. The process of yoga, austerities, etc., unless mixed with some activities of bhakti, will never lead to bhakti. What are the effects of chanting in Nama Bhasa? By chanting in Nama Bhasa, all sinful effects are destroyed and one can attain liberation from the material world. All the effects of Kali Yuga are overcome. By chanting at this stage, all anxieties will go and peace can be obtained. Evil influences of ghosts, demons, spirits, and unfavorable planets are also nullified. Even the residents of hellish planets can achieve liberation by chanting in Namabhasa, for Namabhasa destroys the effects of sinful activities already committed, prarabdha karma. For these reasons, Namabhasa is even more powerful than the Vedas and all holy places. It surpasses all the materialistic pious activities of Karma Kanda. Because the holy name is invested with all Krishna's transcendental energies, even by chanting in Namabhasa, one can attain the goals of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, the cherished aims of Varnashrama system. This chanting can give one the position of happiness in the material universe. It is the only resort for the helpless. One can go up to the border of Vaikuntha planets by this chanting. Scriptures recommend the name as a process for Kali Yuga in particular. So I stop here for today's reading and summarize. So it's very nicely told and explained what are anarthas and what kind of chantings there are and what are the hindrances during the name of the chanting of the holy name. As Haridasa was saying, he was most fortunate enough because Lord Chaitanya himself was here to hear his holy name from his mouth. So Haridasa started explaining about the ignorances. And what are these ignorances? There are three types of ignorances. And the reason for ignorances, one of the main reasons for ignorances is when the jiva forgets the sambandha tattva, not understanding the mutual relationship between the three existence, that is jiva, God, and the material nature. So how come one can overcome these anarthas is by the influence of the holy name, and this can be obtained when somebody is serious and approaches a bona fide guru and who takes the spiritual knowledge from the guru and practices the sadhanas as suggested by the guru, which helps in overcoming the anarthas, and taking the holy name at that point will give the full effect. Sambandha and Abhideya Prayojana, we have already understood this couple of times in the previous reading of our books. The Abhideya is a process by which one can start developing the Sambandha Jnana, which the living entity has forgotten that he is the servant of the Lord and forgets about his relationship with the God, and he enters into the material nature, which is a prison for him. And this material nature acts as a prison where, if he comes over with a pure Vaishnava during his stay in the material nature, can lead him to the liberation. Here we can consider Vaishnava as a jailer who usually in material um, universe where one person commits some culprits and goes into prison, tries to amend the person and makes the person free from the mistakes he has done and brings him understanding and allows him to correct himself as a correction factor and allows and frees him to go back into material nature. Similarly, here when a person meets a pure Vaishnava and follows the process, one can get liberated from this material world. So, by the mercy of a pure Vaishnava devotees, the jiva takes up the Krishna's name, and when he starts really understanding, that is where he starts getting the more effect of the name. Even in chanting in Nava Bhasa is told that it is the most auspicious one compared to any other process of yoga, jnana, or any other mystic performances. This is because Namabhasa chanting still leads to the liberation from this material world. And it's so powerful that it is far better than performing or visiting any holy places or any sacrifices.